At around 1:21 a.m., while passing over the dark sea of South China Sea, Malaysian Airlines flight MH370 from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing lost contact with ATC and disappeared from the radar. This plane, filled with around 249 people, was at a height of 32 feet in the air and was supposed to land in Beijing at around 6 a.m. But then at 6 a.m., then 7 a.m. and 8 a.m., but this plane never landed on the ground, and with this began the story of the most mysterious air accident in AV history. After MH370 disappeared from the radar, it was assumed that this plane must have crashed. But the surprising thing was that even after disappearing from the radar, MH370 was still in the air for the next 7 hours till around 8:15 a.m., and during this time it suddenly disappeared somewhere in the air. But how and why? At this time, when it was supposed to go towards Beijing, it was going in the exact opposite direction. The question is why this accident is considered the most mysterious case in history, and how the world's governments were not able to solve the mystery of MS-375. It was solved by a single man. Welcome to the signboard. This song begins on the night of March 8, 2014 at 12:41. Malaysian Airlines flight MS375 takes off from Kuala Lumpur International Airport, and after a journey of about 6 hours, it was to land in Beijing at around 6 in the morning. At the time of takeoff, there were a total of 227 passengers and 12 crew members in this plane. This was an 11-year-old Boeing 777 in which there was no physical or technical problem of any kind. The sky was clear and the plane was filled with 49 metric tons of fuel, which was enough for 7 to 8 hours. The captain in command of this flight was 53-year-old Zahiri Ahmad Shah, who had about 33 years of flight experience, and his co-pilot was 27-year-old Farik Ahmad, who had about 7 years of flight experience. Now at about 1:45 in the night, when this flight takes off, this story filled with countless mysteries begins. 20 minutes after takeoff, the plane reached an altitude of 35 feet. Now it crossed the Malaysian coastline and was moving towards the South China Sea in the direction of Vietnam. Captain Zahiri reports that everything is normal. Now about a few minutes had passed, the plane reaches Vietnamese air traffic jurisdiction, and this was the moment when MH370 gets the last message from Kuala Lumpur air traffic. This was a formal goodbye message. And this was the last moment till when everything was normal. After this, something very unusual happens in the next few minutes. After leaving the contact of Malaysian ATC, now both the pilots had to contact Vietnamese ATC, but 2 to 3 minutes after the last check-in. At around 1:22 in the night, this plane disappeared from the radar of both Malaysia and Vietnam. Now it is obvious that Kuala Lumpur ATC did not pay much attention to this, because at this time this flight was in Vietnamese airspace, but Vietnamese ATC did not take it lightly and tried to contact the plane continuously. But when Vietnamese ATC did not get any contact with MH375 even after trying hard for the next 18 months, they reported about this in Kuala Lumpur. But here Malaysian air traffic control becomes very careless. By now more than an hour had passed since this incident, and this was the time when Kuala Lumpur Aeronautical Rescue Coordination Center should have been reported about this incident. But here Malaysian Air Traffic Authority was so stupid that they started emergency rescue response almost 4 hours after this incident. By this time it was morning, and after some time it was 6 o'clock in the morning. This was the time when MS-370 was to land at Beijing Capital International Airport. Till now it was expected that this plane would reach Beijing. But when it did not even reach Beijing, it was confirmed that something very wrong had happened with MH370 in the pitch dark of the night over the South China Sea, and with this confirmation began the world's most expensive and longest search operation. After disappearing from the radar, MH370 was searched in the South China Sea, at the same place from where it had disappeared. This was an international search operation in which 34 ships and 28 aircrafts of 7 countries were involved. But even after so much search operation, nothing was known about this plane for the next 4 days. But then on March 12th, a surprising revelation was made. Actually, it comes to light in a report that on that night of March 8th, MH370 had definitely disappeared from the civil radar. But even after this, it remained on the military radar for almost an hour, and when it disappeared from the military radar at 2:22 a.m., its location was not in the South China Sea, but near the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. It was in Mecca, west of Malaysia, which was in the opposite direction from Beijing, and according to the military radar, the plane was moving towards Andaman and Nicobar. Experts involved in the search operation guessed that perhaps, while going towards Andaman and Nicobar, this plane might have crashed in some area of the Himalayas or Kazakhstan. But to find out exactly where it had crashed, on March 17, 2014, the responsibility of this search operation was handed over to the Australian Maritime Safety Authority (EMSA). In the next few days, EMSA starts a search in the southern Indian Ocean with 22 military aircraft and 19 ships from 8 countries, and during this time, they search an area of about 46 lakh square kilometers. But when they did not get anything even till April 24th, then they stopped all the operations going on above the sea surface and started a deep sea search. A search operation was started. But even in this operation that went on for the next several months, the investigators could not find anything significant, and slowly it was heading towards mission failure when a very big truth came to light from this mission. Some satellite data revealed that this plane was continuously sending signals to a satellite even after disappearing from the military radar, and it tried to establish a connection with this satellite about 7 times, but during this time it did not send its location. Usually such aircrafts keep sending such signals to satellites to make their communication easy. But this signal of MH370 is surprising, because even after disappearing from the radar, this plane was in the air not for the next 1 or 2 hours, but for full 7 hours. It sent its last signal to the satellite at around 8:19 in the morning, and after analyzing all these signals, it was found that MH370 was in the Indian Ocean till its last moment. And as soon as this is known, the most important question in this case is that when this plane had to go towards Beijing, why did it go in the opposite direction into the Indian Ocean? And did this plane really crash after going into the Indian Ocean, or did something else happen to it? Keeping such questions in mind, the investigation is ahead and many theories are emerging about it. According to Martin Dolan, the head of this investigation, this was not an accident but a well-planned conspiracy for which complete planning was done beforehand. According to Dolan, Captain Zahiri had deliberately kept a co-pilot with him who had no special experience of a 2-engine aircraft like Bing 777. And there is a possibility that maybe Captain Zahiri was mentally depressed and had suicidal tendencies, so to carry out the mass murder, Captain Zahiri, while going from Malaysia to Vietnam, turned the plane towards Andaman and Nicobar, and then he took it to a place where the pressure was low, due to which all the passengers became unconscious. But Captain Zahiri himself wore an oxygen mask and then crashed the plane into the water. Or it could be that Captain Zahiri was with some terror organization and he got the plane hijacked. Along with this, another possibility is that perhaps any passenger sitting in the plane could also have been from some terrorist group who first hijacked the plane and then either got it crashed or kidnapped it. But when later the Malaysian police checked the background of all the passengers on the flight, no specific evidence was found of any passenger being with any terrorist organization. An area of approximately 7.7 million square kilometers from Malaysia to Australia was searched to find MH375, and in this entire search operation, approximately 30 countries spent $200 million, i.e. approximately more than 1,600 crores were spent, which makes it the world's most expensive search operation. But despite all these facts, one fact remained the same. Despite so many search operations, neither MH377 was found nor its debris. Although during this period there were many claims of its being found, but the most credible claim was the claim made by a fisherman from Madagascar in the year 2015 that one day while fishing, this fisherman found a landing rear door of MH377, which was probably of MH377 and was proof that the pilots of this plane wanted to do this. After this, many claims were made of its debris being found in Mauritius, South Africa, and Tanzania. In the year 2018, a private American investigation company, Ocean Infinity, does a no-fine, no-fees deal with the Malaysian government. This company had many advanced underwater surveillance vehicles which were searching underwater as well as mapping the ocean floor. But despite many months of hard work, this mission also failed. During this time, aerospace expert R. Goddard claimed to have found the last location of this plane by tracking the movements and radio frequencies around the world. According to him, first this plane took a 360-degree turn, and later the pilot deliberately switched off its engines and kept it in an unusual holding pattern for the next 20 minutes, which was a suicidal step on the part of the pilot. Many aerospace experts around the world agree with Richard on this. After all these theories, now another possibility comes up from MH370 that at the place where the plane sent the signal to the satellite for the last time, there are many such islands in the middle of the sea where runways were built during the Second World War, but no one lived there. And possibly MH370 was imprisoned on these islands. This could have been the work of any terrorist organization. But according to some Russian experts, all this was done by the American Navy. Because when the plane found its way, it came under the radar of the American Navy, and when it did not return even after repeated warnings, they captured it. Now in the end, let us talk about this mystery. So the theories that we have told you are some such theories which are most credible in this case. But during this entire incident, many such satellite images also came out which show that something like wreckage of a plane is visible in the Indian Ocean, and if these pictures are not wrong, then this wreckage must be of MH370. That means on the morning of March 8, 24, MH370 crashed in the Indian Ocean and all the people present in it died. But whether this is the complete truth, nobody knows, and the real fact is that nobody knows what happened to MH370 that day. This is still a mystery.